First, language acquisition, negatives. As you would remember that we have already discussed that first language acquisition almost always follows the same pattern across the world, and no matter what language we are talking about. An example in this regard is the acquisition of negatives. So in a morpheme study, that is looking at the smaller units of the word, it was realized that children all over the world acquire negatives not only at the same age, but also in the same pattern. Not just English language, but in all languages. So we would notice, if we study the first language in development in the children, that initially the children attach a negative marker like no, nothing, nahi in Urdu. They will initially attach this negative marker outside of the sentence. No, go to bed. So no comes before. And then gradually they move the negative marker in the middle of the sentence or where it belongs. But this is where it begins with always. So researchers have pointed out that all the children, cross-linguistically, no matter what language they are learning as their first language, will pass through the same 3 stages when they are acquiring negative markers or negative sentences. So first of all, in the first stage, the negative utterances will consist of, for instance, if we imagine a nucleus like the main phrase, the negative marker will either precede that nucleus or be after it. For instance, wear mitten, no. Like wear gloves, no. Want water, no. Not a teddy bear. So the negative marker will not be inside the sentence or inside the utterance, but either before it or after it. In the second stage, the negators, these words no, nothing, not, these will be incorporated into affirmative clauses, like sentences or clauses. The clause and a sentence are different. A sentence is a group of words that makes a complete meaning. A clause is a phrase within a sentence. For instance, they're squirrels. So it's a clause. So gradually, at the stage 2, the children will gradually incorporate negative commands into the affirmative sentences or clauses. So there are no squirrels. You can't dance. We call them affirmative clauses because if you take out the negative from here, it will almost become a positive clause. For instance, remove can't from you can't dance, it will be you dance. So now the child has inserted the negative into the affirmative clause. The third stage is that negators are now always incorporated into affirmative clauses. Now this is happening more, and gradually the use of the negatives within affirmative clauses is now increasing. So that means that the rule of incorporating a negative marker in an utterance has been acquired, but there will still be some mistakes at this stage. So they will utter the right form of the word, the utterance. For example, I don't have a book, perfectly all right, but they might also say, I'm not crying. and they'll forget something that goes along with it. And at times they will say something like, no one didn't come. So over here in the last utterance, there is the mistake of double negatives. No one didn't come. So when there are two negatives together, actually it becomes a positive sentence rather than a negative sentence. So we said over here that language learning of the, especially of the first language of the children, follows the same pattern and follows the same stages across the world, cross-linguistically, that means in all languages. And for an example, we used and we actually looked at the negators or negative sentences or utterances as an example.